Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ayman Mukhtar. This is a new edition of Africa Today. Well, Pope Leo the 14th have called for peace and to the end of tensions in the world affairs on Monday during the first papal visit to Algeria, all while facing an extraordinary broadside by U.S. President Donald Trump over his criticism of the U.S.-Israeli war on Iran.
Leo the 14th has begun a historic visit to Algeria, marking the first ever papal trip to the country and launching an 11-day African tour focused on interfaith dialogue and regional engagement. The visit reportedly is aimed at promoting Christian-Muslim coexistence at a time of global tensions, while also honoring Saint Augustine, whose spiritual legacy is closely tied to the region. The Algeria stop is the first leg of a wider journey that will also take the pontiff to Cameroon, Angola and Equatorial Guinea, highlighting the growing importance of Africa within the Catholic Church. Reactions in Algeria have been mixed. Some see the visit as a symbol of peace and cultural recognition, while others question its timing and broader political context. Some described it as a step toward a more multicultural and inclusive society, while others said it carries limited personal significance and suggested it may be linked to wider geopolitical interests. Algeria is home to a small Catholic community of around 9,000 people, mostly foreigners living alongside a Sunni Muslim majority of approximately 47 million. On his first day, Pope Leo paid tribute to the 19 martyrs in a moment of remembrance before visiting Augustinian nuns in Algiers who run a social services project from a basilica, offering support to people of all faiths and reinforcing a message of outreach and solidarity.
And to shed more light on this, we have the pleasure to have with us over the phone our dear guest, Dr. Ayman Ghoneim, economic and legal expert. Good afternoon, Dr. Ghoneim.
Good afternoon, madam.
Well, Doctor, how do you weigh the timing of the visit to Africa by Pope Leo?
Well, actually, Pope Leo, the Pope of the Catholic Church, is now visiting Africa, or is heading to visit Africa in a very chaotic time. We have the war in the Middle East, and we have a lot of worries about having a global inflation and stagnation, actually stagflation. And of course, we're having a compounded effect in Africa due to the economic challenges in Africa. We know in Africa, of course, we have high poverty rates. We have a lot of challenges for the economic growth. The financing gap in Africa is very high. It's estimated at 70 to $100 billion per annum to revamp and improve the infrastructure. So the visit of the Pope now comes with political, spiritual, as well as economic implications.
Yes. Yes, Dr. Ghoneim, the visit of Pope Leo the 14th includes, besides Algeria, includes Cameroon, Angola, and Equatorial Guinea. Why, in your opinion, are these specific states are included in his tour?
Well, actually, as I told you, the Pope has a lot of roles. He has a political role, he has a spiritual role, and of course, as a statesman, he has an economic role. But and all these roles are interrelated. The Pope reaches out to the places that are mostly in need politically, spiritually, and economically. These countries, of course, may have high challenges in their economies. Poverty rates are high, financing gaps are high. And talking about financing gaps, we're not only talking about the requirement for infrastructure, for improving infrastructure, but we're also talking about the requirements for structural reformation, for adaptation to the climatic changes. We're talking about the requirements for improving the healthcare system, the educational systems. That are the foundation for changing the economic conditions and fighting poverty. So the Pope is now reaching out, and he's reaching out with a political and a spiritual message. The message is that we have to, or the developed world must look to us, must look at Africa, and must do something to help Africa on the economic and the financial side. That, of course, will lead to better infrastructure, better healthcare systems, and better educational systems.
Yes, Pope Leo have referred to himself as the son of Saint Augustine. How does this personal spiritual identity change the nature of his visit to Algeria compared to previous papal trips to North Africa?
Well, actually, the Pope is trying to remind us all of the role of the compassionate saints and compassionate clergymen in taking care of Africa and in sacrificing their lives and sacrificing their time and efforts for the African people, for the people in need, and serving them. The Pope is trying to give a message of service, a message of compassion, and also a message of help and care. He's trying to tell us that to help the African nations, we need to be compassionate. We need to think in the form of altruism. We need to think in a form of, but also we need to think in a practical way. We need to see how to help Africa on the ground by improving the financing and improving the political frameworks for dealing with the African nations, especially through the international financial institutions and the donating countries.
Yes, the Pope, this is the first visit ever to Algeria, and he is entering a nation where the Catholics are a minority. Is this visit more about internal church encouragement? What do you think?
Well, I believe that the Pope is trying to give a message that religion or all religions are coexisting, and all religions can cooperate with each other. I don't think that he really cares about the percentage of Catholics in the countries in which he is visiting, as much as the message of coexistence, the message of peace, the message of cooperation, and the message that the Christian faith is a faith that embraces the values of cooperation, the values of sacrifice, and the values of altruism.
Yes. In Algiers, the Pope had visited the Great Mosque. Given the current global tensions, what specific theology of encounter is he trying to model for the other world leaders?
Well, actually, this is another message of peace and coexistence between religion and cooperation between religions. The Islamic faith and the Christian faith have long coexisted in a lot of countries, including Egypt, by the way, and especially Egypt. The Muslims, they have embraced Christians and vice versa, and receiving the Pope in the mosque with all its ideological, spiritual, and political meanings and political symbols. This gives a message to the whole world about the true meaning of religions and the true idea of peace and coexistence and the true idea of cooperation between different faiths, especially the Islamic and the Christian faith.
Yes, Pope Leo have recently responded to criticisms from the U.S. administration regarding his foreign policy. So how does his visit or tour in Africa would tell about the Vatican's independence from the Western political interests?
Well, actually, we should stop here to note that the Pope Leo is an American, and he is the first American.
Yes, from Chicago. Yes.
Yes, exactly. He is the first American Pope of the Catholic Church.
Yes.
but the Pope, his foreign policy and the messages that he has been delivering is independent of his nationality and is independent of the policies and strategies and the messages of other governments. He's trying to give. He's trying to give a distinct message, a message of hope, a message of cooperation, a message of coexistence, a message of peace between all religions, and that's why such messages have been very well received across the world, and especially, by the way, in Egypt by Al Azhar University, by the Grand Imam of Al Azhar, and the Grand Imam has issued a lot of statements, a lot of quotes commending such message and commending the fact that the Pope and the Vatican is heading towards embracing the message of cooperation and pluralism and coexistence between different religions.
Yes, I thank you very much for your time. Thank you for your valuable information, Dr. Ayman Ghoneim, economic and legal expert. The renewal of the UN peacekeeping mission in South Sudan will be debated this week. Established under Security Council resolution in 1996, in July 2011, to support South Sudan's transition to independence, the mission is facing many hurdles.
The United Nations Security Council will debate the renewal of the UN peacekeeping mission in South Sudan, UNMISS, as civilians throughout the country are at risk of atrocities and need greater protection. The mission, established under Security Council Resolution 1996 in July 2011 to support South Sudan's transition to independence, evolved after civil war broke out in 2013. It is mandated to protect civilians, facilitate humanitarian access, support the peace process, and monitor human rights violations. The mandate renewal should be a done deal, but it is not. The discussions will take place amid ongoing widespread conflict. Government forces have conducted bombardment campaigns in Upper Nile and Jonglei states, often in populated areas, killing civilians, destroying civilian infrastructure, including hospitals, and forcing hundreds of thousands of people to flee. The forces and their allies have reportedly also razed and burned villages and towns. Both government and opposition forces have committed crimes, looted civilian property, and forcibly recruited adults and children, often along ethnic lines. Observers say the need for a robust protection force and a UN mission that is able physically and politically to protect civilians and to ensure the delivery of life-saving aid has never been greater. The United States holds the pen on the file, which means they are in the driver's seat on drafting the renewal resolution. Last year, the U.S. tried to undermine the mandate by pressing to remove critical wording related to gender, gender equality, sexual and gender-based violence, women's participation and climate change, among other substantive issues. The UN has already stripped down the mission by a third within a few months due to immediate cash flow problems, largely caused by the U.S. withholding most of its UN contributions to general and peacekeeping budgets.
Germany has agreed to give South Africa a new €200 million climate loan, and the two countries will deepen cooperation in other areas like critical minerals. South Africa's foreign minister reported the development after talks with German counterpart in Berlin. He said the loan will support investment in South Africa's power grid and renewable energy capacity. He said German and European Union funding for green hydrogen and battery value chain cooperation had also been extended by more than €270 million.
نحن لدينا مصير مشترك.
مصر تسلمت الرئاسة الدورية للاتحاد الإفريقي لعام 2019 وتتطلع كعادتها دوما للتعبير عن شواغل الشعوب الإفريقية الشقيقة الرامية لتحقيق الاستقرار والتقدم ودفع عجلة التنمية قدما. إذا كنتم ترغبون في تغيير وجه القارة الأفريقية فالاتحاد الإفريقي كقيادة تستطيع أن تعمل وتدرس بشكل مركزي لمشروع عملاق لبناء بنية أساسية على مستوى القارة. أنا أتصور أن الأمن والاستقرار استثمار. إذا لم تستقر هذه القارة والأمن فيها بمعدلاته عالية هذا الأمر سينعكس بالسلب علينا كلنا.
Welcome back. The Horn of Africa is facing many risks from the repercussions of the war on Iran. These include serving critical food, trade lifelines, and oil disruptions.
The escalation of hostilities between Iran and the U.S. has evolved into a multifaceted crisis, transforming strategic maritime corridors into primary battlegrounds for state and non-state actors alike. While the world focuses on global oil volatility, potential disruptions in the Bab el-Mandab Strait could push the Horn of Africa toward a humanitarian breaking point by severing critical food and trade lifelines. The escalation raised immediate concerns over maritime security in the Arab Gulf, particularly the Strait of Hormuz, through which a significant share of global oil supplies flow. Fears of disruption to this choke point contributed to heightened volatility in global energy markets and renewed concerns over a potential oil price shock. A defining feature of this escalation is the increasing role of non-state actors aligned with Iran. Among them, the Houthi movement in Yemen has emerged as a key actor capable of influencing events far beyond its immediate battlefield. By launching missile and drone attacks on commercial shipping in the Bab el-Mandab Strait and the southern Red Sea, the Houthis have opened a southern front in support of Tehran's broader confrontation with the U.S. and its allies. Given the strait's geographic proximity to the Horn of Africa and its role as a key gateway for regional imports and maritime trade, these disruptions extend beyond the immediate conflict zone, exposing the Horn of Africa to heightened economic pressure and food insecurity in a context already shaped by conflict and climate-induced crises. A temporary two-week ceasefire between Iran and the U.S. announced earlier this month could ease immediate hostilities in the region, offering a brief window for safer maritime passage through the Bab el-Mandab Strait. But the structural vulnerabilities in the Horn of Africa, such as dependence on imported staples, ongoing conflicts, and growing militarization, mean that economic, food security, and security risks remain elevated despite the ceasefire. Situated at the southern entrance of the Red Sea, the strait separates Yemen on the Arabian Peninsula from the Djibouti and Eritrea in the Horn of Africa. The strait forms a critical maritime choke point linking the Red Sea to the Gulf of Aden and by extension to the Indian Ocean, making it a crucial corridor for global trade and the Suez Canal route.
With this, my dear viewers, we come to the end of Africa Today. My name is Ayman. Thank you for watching.